Welcome guys, in today's video we're going to be breaking down a demo track that I've made, part 1 of this multi-series How to Make Techno. Today we're concentrating on a deep raw style of techno. We're going to go into each element of the track, break it down. If you've got any questions, post below, and if you would like me to release this as a template for free, more than happy to do it if enough people comment and post below. I'll do that. This is part 1. We're going to be doing a multi-series of multiple different types of techno. Today, as I said, it's this kind of raw, deep, slightly dark techno. So first things first, let's have a quick playthrough of what we have. Okay, guys. So, there you have it. Let's now jump into each of the elements and break everything down. So, believe it or not, quite a simple track, not a lot of difficult or complex things going on. So easy to explain. I'm not going to spend any more than 15 minutes going through each of these sections. I'll talk a little bit about processing, but if there's any immediate questions, more than happy to answer those if you want to ask me. So I'm going to minimize everything into the various tracks. I haven't color coordinated anything in this instance. So let's start with the low end, okay? Probably the most important part of any techno track. So you could have seen me doing a couple of things because I was still trialing and erroring certain things to make sure I was happy with them, especially with the mid side, because the bass is quite stereo, although the sub part of it is quite mono. So I was just playing around. But let's have a little listen to this. Going to turn it down a little bit. So for this track, quite a simple low end, nothing too complex because we've layered another kind of synth bass on top of this, or a synth bass style layer on top of this. So we've got a 909 kick. Standard processing, so taking off the immediate tail to shorten the kick so that it gives space for the bass, and then we've added some saturation overdrive, EQ, taking out about 370 dynamically, and then using this classic cut classic rather to add a bit of redux, kind of vintage sampler noise over the top of the kick. So before, after, just a strong punchy kind of crushed kick. In terms of the bass, very simple. We're using a sub bass sample. However, we're tuning it and shaping it to how we want it. So very simply, it is an offbeat bass with a skip note here, very simply. So to get the sound that we're after, if I turn everything off, this is how it sounds before. So not exactly right for techno, however, use the filter. I've got a slow attack on the filter envelope. I've got the cutoff filter down low, a little bit of the amount, filter envelope amount going through, so. To make it more of a kind of a sub. Next thing that we've done is we've enabled the pitch envelope. We've shortened the bass because it was quite a long sample, so we've got a short release staccato bass that we want. So for the pitch envelope, we've got this shape here. So we've got a very, very slow attack, quite a short decay and very short release in 0 sustain. And we've got the pitch envelope moving up 16 semitones to create this kind of so it does a little bit. Of course, if you want a different flavour and you want something that's maybe a little bit more like a donk sound, you could tune the envelope and shape the envelope to get something a little bit more like that, for example. Depends on what you're going for. That sounds a little bit more percussive. This is just a bit more softer because it probably shapes the sound of the track that we're going for. The bass isn't really in your face. It's a sub profile that's kind of consolidated in the mix. We've layered that with this other sound. It was just a cut from a loop. It's just to add a little bit of attack to the sound, so you can't even really hear what it's doing. Processing, really simple. Again, saturation, overdrive, EQ, and we're doing a bit of mid-side processing here. Okay, just if you turn this off, it's a little bit wide. We want that low end to be really strongly mono, and then some sidechain. And that's basically it on the low end bus. I think very similar kind of thing. So glue compression, getting a couple of dB of gain. We've got a very slow attack, and I've kept the release in this since it's quite slow as well. When I'm using the glue compressor, normally I bring it back, but it kind of worked. A little bit of low end attenuation with the Pro MB, a little bit more EQ, mid-side EQ, and working some more of the kind of mid frequencies that I felt needed it. Black box, hardly using any black box, literally 4% wet saturation, and then some additional soft side saturation over the top, just to crush the sound and really allow that sub part of the bass to be heard. So that's the low end. The drums are fairly simple in this instance, so I'm using Ableton kits and a couple of loops and samples. So we're using this count-in kit, and this is the really nice hat, a 16th shuffling pattern, and there's this sample that I've taken a filter over. We have a shaker. We've got these FM hats coming from the S drum rack. We've got a ride down 3 semitones, so you'll notice because there's quite a lot of other frequencies in that range, so I've got it down 3 semitones. And then I've got a very short 909 hat. And I've sent that to, I've got some reverb send on that. Got a clap effect sample. Really simple. Standard snare for the snare build in here. It comes in at the breakdown. It's really simple. And then probably where I spent most effort, apart from the low end, was the synth group. That's what's running, and that's the main interest in the track. So, believe it or not, I started off and I'm using the DS drum kit, and I'm using the FM instrument within that, which you can hear here. So I've got this clang sound, tweaked the tone and the feedback and also the decay, so it's very short. I've got quite a lot of processing on this to take it to what it is. So I might just turn all that off. So quite a decent sound, to be fair. I'll try another section that's not got. There you go. You can hear it without the reverb sound. Just a quite strong FM sound that, to be honest, works really well in techno. So for this, I have a really simple basic pattern. Okay. Where's it going? Click here. Boom, boom, boom. So the last note is up. I'm also using the second FM patch or pad. This thing here. So two slightly different sounds. This is a different pitch than that, and it's slightly different characteristics. So that's basically it. So in terms of the effects, we've got some EQ to boost some of the low mids and the kind of mids, and we've got another EQ cutting out below 70 hertz. Into analog clip, we've used this throughout the track, so I've used it in multiple different tracks. To glue the sound, or both of those sample sounds together, I'm using glue compressor. You can see quite a lot of gain reduction there. I want it to snap and just hold the sounds together nicely and glue them. This delay, kind of glitchy delay sound. This random effect that I found that adds quite a nice amount of distortion. I had to tweak it, but it's just one of the stock effects from Ableton. Just adds a little bit of noise and distortion. It's quite nice. Next thing, I've added some Hass effect. This is just a preset that I've saved. I've made myself, spreader. So this is just creating a stereo effect, because there's quite a lot of mono stuff in here, so it's very good to create a kind of contrast to that with something in mono, something in stereo. We've got some reverb that gets modulated. It sounds quite dark and moody when you bring that up. We've got all the top end more or less taken off, and we've got this auto filter on, so it's stopping about 1.4K, just to keep the noise quite dark, because we want this to be quite a dark sound, because we've got a lot of bright hats and percussion, so it's always good to keep something like this kind of refined a little bit more. And then a little bit of final EQ on the way out. So that's basically the sound that you get. Okay, so quite a lot of processing on this. I'll do you a before and after, but it's... Okay, so that's before, and then after. I mean, that's how it really sounds, but there's an auto filter on the synth bus, so you can't hear it, but you can really hear it sounds very crisp, clean. That stereo width effect that we're getting really enhances the sound as well. By the way, if you're not sure about how to do stereo width, it's called the Hass effect. You can use a stereo tool, but I find it easier just to drop in the delay. So essentially what you want to do to create stereo is what you want is ping pong enabled. You can leave the filter on, but I turn it off. Feedback is 0. And then you want to turn each channel to time, not to sync. Link each channel, and then you want to move the knob until you find something that sounds right. What you can also do to really enhance the effect is to have one of the channels slightly slower or slightly quicker than the other. But this profile works pretty well, as you can hear. And of course, you can use loads of different stereo effects, stereo image effects, etc. So that's one element, and that literally just plays throughout the track, with the dry wet on this reverb being modulated. Next we have this bass stab, which again plays for the longevity of the track. This is very, very simple again, literally 2 notes. So it's really, really solid, strong kind of bass almost that just hits really centrally, which is lovely because lovely. I don't know where the word lovely came from, which is nice because you've got the driving kind of almost FM sounding bass down the centre. Then you've got this other kind of quite strong, gritty, textural FM sound out wide. And the two on top of each other work really well. At least that's the idea. So what I'm going to do is turn everything, let's group that for turn everything off so you can hear the that's how it sounds without any effects on it. I've sent it to the reverb boss as well. In terms of sound design, this is very simple, guys. There's hardly anything difficult. So I'm using this 5th brutal wave type, which is almost something between a sawtooth and a square wave combined. I've got the wavetable set to about 59%. Selecting mono. We've got both filters enabled, so filter 2 is acting as a cutting below in below 30 Hz and also just boosting the resonance. We're using OSR type filter and adding some drive through. We've enabled filter 1, again driving up that resonance to sweeten those frequencies going through. So we've got the cut off down and it stays down for the entire track. What we have got is the amp. So the shape of the amp here is very, very short, staccato, punchy. It's like a pluck type bass, so very short attack and no release, no sustain, and a very short decay. So it's like a very percussive sound that we've got. Envelope 2 is just left. Envelope 3, I was doing something with pitch, but I decided not to go down that road. So filter 1, we're sending 100% through. So that's modulating 100%. We turn that down like I did. It's really cool if you slowly bring this up. Next thing, oscillator 1 position. We are driving this up as well. You can see that modulating there. And to be honest, that was a sweet spot for me. It just tonally and harmonically, it just at that 45 position just hit the note perfectly. And that's basically the sound. There's not anything else happening in terms of the sound design. Really simple. Now, in terms of effects, very similar effects that we've used. So overdrive, we're using a delay to give it some swing. So it's giving it almost like a second note, but not a second note. Helps the groove. We've got this reverb again, but I don't think we're using it. I thought I had more on here, but I don't. We're going into a drum bus standard settings, so taming the transients because there's a bit of reverb going on, compression, tiny bit of crunch, and that's going into a sidechain in the kickstart. There's a bit of reverb send as well. So that's basically it. Now I have a synth bus, and to give them the final bit of processing, we've got overdrive on the synth bus, just a little bit. Then we're using this flanger, only 23%, just to give it a slightly metallic sound. It just adds something, and you can hear it kind of moving a little bit. Really like that. It's just very subtle, but does add something. Pro Q4 I didn't use, and then basically the key bit of automation on the bus is the auto filter. All of this automation, all of this building up tension and releasing tension is done using an auto filter, because the sounds have been constructed in such a way that they work with each other. That's basically the whole of the track. So as you can see here, and you would have heard through the playthrough, we're constantly going up and down, building tension and emotion, dropping it down with this filter, and I can show you how that sounds. So you can see the filter slowly go back down and slowly come back up. And I actually just penciled this in myself, just by hand, by eye. Best thing you can do when you have something like this is map up a macro control knob on a keyboard or something like that, and just have a bit of fun and see where you get to. But the idea is to constantly build up. Every 8 bars or so, you build that up, you open up the filter and bring it back. So the other thing that we are doing to in terms of modulation is we're modulating the time, the global time function in these notes here. So if we look at envelope, you can see we're modulating that, and all that does is, if you've used operator before, there's the same time knob. It just is almost like a master release. It just elongates the sound, and we've got that here, and we've also got that in the build up here, just to create that tension. In this clang track, to create more tension, we are modulating the reverb every so often. So if we show the modulation on that, in fact, it's not every so often, it's only at the breakdown and into the drop. You've got some here. Okay, so in terms of automation, that's pretty much it. There is quite a lot going on the mix bus, which I'm going to move on to next. So in terms of processing, we're mixing into the 1176. So it's really heavily compressing this, but it does an amazing job at just bringing everything together and consolidating it. It's one of my favourite compressors or limiting amplifiers, to be honest. And this is the UAD one, which, to be honest, anyone who uses any of these emulations, I use the Native Instruments plugin Alliance one. But the universal audio one is just better. I don't know how. Don't know why, but maybe you know, comment below. But overdrive, the OG overdrive just works. We're mixing into Mag EQ to get that special air. If you're looking for that shiny top end, that's what you want. So 5K, we're boosting 1.5 dB, and then we're also giving it a little bit of a booster in 2.5K. Analog clip again. And then we've added a little bit of additional processing, just adding a little bit of air. Okay, not too much, just to get that top, further accentuate that top end shine. And that's all that's on the master bus. In terms of automation, your standard low cut comes on every so often, and then we have another filter that comes in at the breakdown into the drop. So I don't know how I am for time. I did say 15 minutes. I think I might be over, but the last thing I'm going to do is kind of have a look at the track structure and then the breakdown into the drop very quickly. So this track is fairly basic in terms of the structure. So turn this down while I'm talking. We have a extended intro. You can hear the auto filter cutting off the low ends. Oh, by the way, there's one thing that I am doing which is very, very cool. You can hear the decay on the hi-hat here because it's noise. See, when you open up that decay, it sounds really, really great. It sounds almost like a little riser, so you can hear that coming in through the track. Here we go. That happens quite often. So basically we're into an intro, but it's an extended intro. We're not stripping anything back too much. Everything's kind of coming in and it's quite active. But you can hear we are slowly modulating the volume of the synth bus. Just bringing it in. Brought in the rides here. So you can see the track volume here. So up to bar 49. Bringing in the volume. Got these clap fills coming in every so often as well. So basically until about bar 65, for whatever reason I started off from bar 25. So for the first 30, first 40 bars, it's an extended intro, building up that tension through the volume of the synth bus and also modulating the filter here. At bar 65 we have a mini break here. We drop everything and just build it up. We've got a little bit of reverb, send, effect and modulation on the actual overall mix bus. Well, we've cut all the bass and the low end out, so you can see that ramping up here. Very simply building up the tension, building up that emotion, letting the filter open, and then just before the drop, bringing the filter back, and then back in. Really simple stuff, but it works. So that continues more or less until we get to our breakdown. Okay, that kind of concept continues with the claps, the vocal thing coming in. The vocal thing, what I mean by that? What do I mean by that? The vocal thing is a vocal sample which happens to be in the low end bus. Don't know why. It's just this weird spooky could add a wee bit more sidechain on that, to be honest. Really simple, to be honest. So yeah, that basically continues until about bar 137. That's when, or bar 129. That's when we break down, or maybe just after bar 137. Yeah. So from bar 137 to 1353, roughly about a 16 bar build up. Everything's getting built up, releasing the filter, got white noise going on, and we've got our snare build as well. Turn this up a bit. Yeah, so we had a snare build in there, but I've lost where it is. Where are you? Snare. So really simple, guys. Literally just a bit of modulation, a bit of automation on the auto filter on the filter as it ramps up. Really simple, really basic, building up that tension, and that kind of follows that pattern for another 20 or so bars until we have a mini break here, and then you can see here the filter closes down and the track fades to a close. All right, and that's basically it in terms of arrangement. Really simple. I mean, the core constituent of the track is the kind of two synths layered over the top of each other, and the tension and release through automating the reverb and the auto filter. That's what's giving it the energy. So guys, probably over a bit over 15 minutes. We'll try and keep to that next time. Again, if you have any questions, post below, and if you would like me to put this on my website as a track template, so you guys can get a copy and have a look-see and dig into it further, by all means, just post below. I hope you've enjoyed this first part of this How to Techno multi-series. Any questions, post below, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.